are back with the Dr. Joe Show with Dr. Joseph Biederman, talking about some fascinating discoveries that he's made over the course of what, 40 years?
40 years. Yeah.
We were off air. We were just about to get into what I think most people would really wonder about, because they understand that the medications for attention deficit are very often stimulants. How on earth did people come up with this? Because it's just not intuitive that you give a stimulant to somebody who's already so hyperactive.
This discovery is like all psychotropic, all medication psychiatry, total serendipity. The most recent serendipity is the discovery of Viagra. You know, Viagra, I'm using it as an example to illustrate my point. Viagra was being developed as a cardiac medication to lower blood pressure. Somebody observed that patients were not, when you do clinical trials, you give a few more pills than you need, and you ask people to return, so you assess crudely compliance. So people are not returning the pills. And that followed the discovery that has an effect that total serendipity. It's not that a chemist had a particular goal in mind, okay? So those days we're talking about the discovery of amphetamines was 1937 by Dr. Bradley in Rhode Island. The Bradley Hospital for Children in Rhode Island was named after him. So he was not looking for stimulants. He was running a ward for hyperactive children that were running around like crazy. And he was trying to do some research. Those days he did not have access to MRI like we do today. So he was doing something that's called in pneumoencephalography, that you inject air through a lumbar puncture, and then you can visualize the brain. Okay, that was it. So for some reason, he thought after you do lumbar punctures, people have headaches because you eliminate the cerebral spinal fluid. So he came about the idea that he wanted to use amphetamines to mitigate headaches. And what he observed, like the Viagra story, all these children that he did that, instead of running around sad and were able to participate in the classroom, he published that paper in 1937 in the American Journal of Psychiatry, and that's the birth of amphetamines. In the 50s, also by serendipity, a Swiss chemist working out of what is now Novartis, or Ciba-Geigy then, was looking for something else and came about Ritalin. He called the drug Ritalin because he honored his wife that was named Rita. So, and that's the way that Ritalin was born, okay? And they generically are called stimulants. I do not know why, but they are not necessarily stimulating medicine, but they're kind of alerting, producing. The stimulants have been used for many years and no longer are used for that as a weight suppression drug, and has been used to maintain alertness in the military for many, many years. If you are a general and you are at war and you need to move a division overnight, and the soldiers cannot go and sleep. So these medications were in every soldier's backpack. The pilots in World War II used this medication to have long flights to bomb Germany. I remember there was a very toxic article by somebody by the name of Nissen. There's a cardiologist kind of giving venom on how dangerous the stimulants are. And one of the things that he says is that the Air Force of Germany, the Wehrmacht, used stimulants. And so he declared the medicines as Nazi drugs. Okay, so he forgot to say in the article that the military, our pilots were using the same drugs for the same reasons, not only the German pilots. But these are drugs that maintain alertness, so they're have been extensively used before. The connection with ADHD, I think, comes from Dr. Bradley's observations that hyperactive children kind of calm down, I think, so to speak. They don't calm down, they're not hyperactive. That's so has a, so if you if you don't need ADHD medication, you take it, you'll become agitated. To calm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's the part that's just so remarkable. And I mean, for some people, you know, if they don't have attention deficit, they certainly get really agitated and really revved up, like they're
Yeah,
on.
it's like drinking coffee, but it's extensively used still for doing all-nighters in college. It's the most common reason for this off-label kind of extracurricular use of medications of this type is to study, not to party. I think for most people with ADHD, the medication is not associated with any high. So that's mythology too.
Right.
In fact, the majority of patients feel funny, like happens with narcotics too, with opioids. Not everybody gets high on the opioids. Some people feel very funny and uncomfortable because the reason for that is there are several opioid receptors. The one that produces euphoria is one of them, but there is another one, it's called kappa receptor, that produces the opposite of a kind of a funny feeling. And patients will tell you, if you treat children or adults, they say, I don't feel myself, I lost my sense of humor. My friends don't like to hang around me, I'm too serious and I can only do work. This type of complaints. So it's not kind of, oh gee, give me more of that. I am super excited. That's really, it's not. The main problem with ADHD treatment is that people don't take the medicine. So we have a condition that is poised to ruin your life. We have extraordinary, helpful, effective medicines. People don't take.
And do parents worry that, you know, their kids will get addicted or, you know, that
Yeah,
they'll start using drugs?
they worry. The data that I published and by me and others showed exactly the opposite. Those that have the good fortune of being diagnosed and treated have a dramatic reduction in the risk for addiction, not the other way around.
Yeah.
The risk is very high if you don't treat.
Yeah. And this is part of what I also say to audiences with something we do called drug story theater, where we had in the show, one of the girls who did not have attention deficit, and this is a true story, had been stealing her friend's Adderall and getting high from it. And of course, when kids in the audience hear that and their parents hear that, they think, oh my gosh, this is, you know, a very dangerous drug. And we explain, for those people who do not have attention deficit, it absolutely can be. But for those who do, because they start doing better in school, they're less likely
Well,
to want to use drugs later on.
remember, these medications, I prefer not to use the word drug because that had negative connotations.
Excellent.
I prefer to use
Thank you.
medication.
Thank you.
And those people that there are scheduled medication, that means there is a recognition that this type of medication can be inappropriately used.
Mhm.
I like to editorialize that statement by reminding people that those people that are taking these medications to get high, they are different people than the ones that have legitimate. It's like if you have malignancy and terrible pains, thanks God we have opioids. Okay, thanks God. Tylenol will not do anything to those people. So to say that we are not going to use it because some people inject IV heroin, yes, some people do that, like there is inappropriate behaviors in all fields. But the reality is that the people that, there's another thing that is very important to remember, the oral administration is not really associated with euphoria. When those people that misuse it snort it. So many of the long-acting medications are very difficult to snort. So they're much safer. There are some medications like Vyvanse, for example, that is a prodrug that is inactive outside the body, so you cannot inject, you cannot snort. Some of the new generation of long-acting compounds use some kind of almost like a gel, very complicated delivery system. It's impossible to smoke, snort, or do anything that it produces it. The risk for euphoria is when you snort it, because snorting is the same as IV. It goes straight to the brain, and the faster it goes to the brain, the more the euphoric feeling. But the risk for addictions in appropriately treated people is very, very, very small.
Yeah, in terms of the euphoric event and experience, I must say that the thing that does give me the most euphoria is knowing that we have sponsors who support us. And with that in mind and that euphoria, let's take our commercial break and we'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show. Go ahead, Ben. Take it away.
Stretch the